commencer dessus avec
Happy holidays! I've got a gift for you. Buy 4 tarot readings or coaching session gift codes in any combination, and you'll receive 2 additional gift codes too. So use all 6 codes for yourself or share them with friends and family as holiday gifts, stocking stuffers, or maybe even birthday presents. These don't expire, so you can feel free to use them and share them throughout the year. Merry Christmas, and thank you so much for being my friends. Hi there, Gemini. This is your weekly reading for the week of January 4th, 2016. Happy New Year to you. I hope your holidays have been wonderful and that you're feeling hopeful and looking forward to a brand new year. I know I am. Monday, the card you've drawn is the Ace of Pentacles in reverse. So this is just a reminder that this isn't the best time to initiate any financial transactions, agreements, things like refinancing, applying for credit or loans. Trying to restructure one wouldn't be such a bad idea. I don't think I would commit to one at this time. But whatever it is that you would like to go ahead and move forward with is better thought out with a little more time. And considering that Mercury will be going retrograde here, it would be best to try to work with what's already in place. And while renegotiating is part of what most of us would suggest during a Mercury retrograde phase anyway, there are bookend dates. There are days when the Mercury retrograde is intensified, and that would be a little more complicated than just explaining it, because if we looked at your natal chart, your horoscope, we might have some more positive transits to support doing something like that across the board. I'd want to say yes, it's typically a good idea, but I would still want to put my John Hancock on an application or any other type of agreement at better phases or more supported junctures, which would be easier to identify with your natal horoscope and transit information. Just if at all possible, try to wait until mid-February. For those of you that are looking to start new employment, if it's already in progress and your start date is already on the way, then you're already in the cycle of starting. That hopefully should go well for you. For those of you that need a job and are looking and are freaking out because of all the nightmare information you've heard about Mercury retrograde, remember that if you need a job, you just do. If you're not independently wealthy, and in that case, I'd wonder why you'd have to work anyway. But like most of us, typical people of average income, having to take a job isn't a matter of choice, and timing can't always be perfect. So just do what you have to do. If you do have a choice where you don't have to start, of course, the best time to put the final seal of approval, your signature on an acceptance for a job, etc. Of course, my favorite would be mid-February. Again, only you know what's best for you, but just keep those admonitions in mind. If you need a job and you just do what you need to do. Usually what we can expect just kind of across the board is that the job doesn't turn out to be exactly what you'd hope for, sometimes we do see better situations come about. And of course, with personal transits, we might see that information. But we can expect sometimes that what the job description is not what was conveyed to you, or somehow something changes, that kind of thing, or you thought everything was great and you read all the fine print and you were told you'd get a performance bonus, but then they said, yeah, after a year or two, or you're like, wow, why even bother telling me? So just use your best judgment with all of the above, where finances and other resource considerations are taking into account. On Tuesday, the card you've drawn is the World in reverse. Again, it seems like we can't start something new because something old is still wrapping up, but that's the way it goes, right? We can't anticipate starting a new cycle until the loose ends have been fully tied and cauterized and, kind of sealed off. So don't take it as a bad thing. It is kind of, a bummer to start the new year off with a Mercury retrograde phase, but I'm actually looking forward to it because I never really feel like it's a new year until we pass Chinese Lunar New Year. And then, of course, when we get to the spring equinox, then I'm starting to feel pretty good about the time that Aries are celebrating birthdays. I'm like, yes, here we go. So use this time to your advantage to rethink your plans, to figure out what loose ends need to be tied up. Of course, it's tax season in the United States, and I'm suggesting to everybody not to file during the retrograde if at all possible, because we could have a lot of revisions. We could be flagged for audits for those of us filing long form and having a lot of different expenses. My favorite one, right? Mileage. Now there's a new app out there. I can't remember the name, but it seems to be pretty intelligent. But for what it's worth, do whatever you need to do, but keep in consideration that if you're banking on something, one thing or another, whatever it is, plan B, plan C, plan D. So the World card coincides here with Mercury taking a step into Aquarius. So Mercury in your solar eighth house of death and taxes, right? Joint resources, joint bank accounts, community funds, the results, the products, of fruits of the relationship of the seventh house for those of you who are married or otherwise seriously partnered up and coupled up. Okay, so this wouldn't just be dating like the fifth house. This would be your partner, whether in business or in finance, or your roommate, the person that you share expenses with. So there's something going on here, and that's why I would really suggest to, honestly, for Gemini, and I would almost even say this right off the bat for Cancer, but this is your reading, to be especially careful and diligent about how you file your taxes. That's ruled by the eighth house. So Mercury will take a step into the ninth house, which is going to give you a preview. And I know you students of astrology and the tarot are probably about to have sudden and instant explosive diarrhea, because you know where I'm going with this, but it's not just this. What students of the tarot and astrology are thinking, oh crap, Mercury is going to take one step into the ninth house. And this could involve legal issues and other kind of contractual issues and disputes thereof. But we have to remember that this is also the house of higher education, philosophies, long distance travels, everything long distance, relocating at a distance. And sometimes we even see people's families show up here that are at a long distance. So because we're getting the preview of Mercury taking one step in, hanging out for a few days, and then going retrograde back into the eighth house, we know that you need to be very practical and very grounded about any eighth house matters as they relate to mercurial agendas. So contracts, negotiations, applications, filing your taxes, filling out applications, any which way that we communicate. Any of you who are getting ready to deliver some interrogatory responses, that kind of thing is where we need to be very careful, Take your time. Don't rip through it. Mercury won't let you anyway. Although, if you push really hard, it's kind of like anything else, right? Have you ever stood behind a door and held it and held it and held it and then just let go to see, what happens when that person keeps pushing? Just when we're playing with the laws of physics and then gravity takes effect. So just be very careful, okay? So it doesn't mean that it is going to be a disaster, but look, anything can happen. Just dot your I's, cross your T's. Don't rip through anything. And then remember kind of the 3-time rule. Go over it once, go over it twice, go over it 3 times. Just keep going over it and you'll be fine. Mercury will go retrograde in Aquarius. And then it will begin its little journey backward, back into that 8th house, which I like the 8th house. I'm a Scorpio, so that's my house. Venus in Sagittarius, your solar 7th house of the marriage and committed partnership, relationship, business partnership, alliance, is squaring Neptune in Pisces, your solar 10th house of the career. There are going to be a portion of you, there's going to be a group of you that are thinking about changing jobs, switching jobs. Think about it at this time. If you've been thinking about it for a while and hasn't panned out already, I wouldn't be pushing too hard. I would be rethinking, redoing, everything. Also, this square to Neptune in Pisces is reminding you that you don't have all the information. Now, we have to remember that part of the exploration that is whether deductive thinking or investigative thinking, that takes time. Neptune always has the effect of somehow clouding, I don't really want to say obscuring, just kind of fogging it up a bit, the facts. And we'll get more into how you can avoid this. But with the square energy, obviously there's a conflict going on between your marriage and your partnership and something that one of you needs in either that house, the 10th house of your fame, reputation, career, your financial goals here because of the gains related. And it just could be that you guys need to keep working through this for those of you that are partnered up. For those of you that are not partnered up, this would just be about the partnership that you're hoping to establish in business and finance. And we'll be talking about romance for the most part in a different reading. Here in this case, I'm just looking at the general influences to help you come up with different ideas, because this is not about me telling you what's going to happen. It's about me saying things that stimulate your deductive thinking, that stimulate your imagination, that stimulate your investigation. Just, it's all about exploration. I'm just the tool that's going to speak it to you to see what you do with it. Also, the sun in Sagittarius conjuncts Pluto and Capricorn. Here we go. Capricorn, again, that solar 8th house. If there is some issue, it is going to be related to this 8th house. So again, for those of you where there's some struggle between the career and the goals and the relationship and its inherent structure, there is some kind of communal, if not agreed upon previously, situation that seems to be, I don't really want to call it loggerheads, but the illumination is here, right? Pluto is doing us the favor by indicating to us that this is the area where you need to dig. Some of you, let me just give you some examples. I don't want anybody freaking out. I'm just going to throw a random example that I'm making up so that you can further analyze it in your own personal life. So you get a couple. They just, nag and get at each other, and they thought everything was, You talk to each spouse separately, they'll be like, yeah, we've got a great relationship. You know how it is. Every relationship has its ups and downs. And I always cringe when people say that, just from a therapeutic approach, when you're trying to get people to really say what they need to so that you can move forward with solutions. And one of them says, our relationship, every couple has its ups and downs. I'm like, oh God, here we go. This is going to be a can of worms. So let's say we've got a couple like that where they kind of pretend everything's okay. But truly, I think if you left them alone in a sealed room, padded walls, no light bulb, no food, they'd probably emerge beat up after a while. And what Pluto's effect here would be that the illumination of the conjunction of the luminary would expose something that someone has kept hidden in relation to the relationship of the seventh house in the effect of it, effectively what it produced in the eighth. So you could have one spouse had a secret bank account. You could have one spouse has been putting $25 a month away without the intention of ever telling you about it, right? Because if a couple is normal and stable, they don't hide finances from each other. If they were wanting to put $25 away and not let you get at it, they'd call it a savings account or put it into some certificate of deposit, or in a box with two locks so it takes both keys that each, something like that. So the luminary here would be, in essence, directly training the spotlight onto this area. So don't get over, excited about this energy. I'm not saying go punch your husband in the head, because for sure he's been putting money away. But for some of you, something like this could apply, right? I don't know everybody's life. We just know what the potentials are. And with that said, we know that we've got Mercury retrograde. So I really, even if I did go snoop around, I wouldn't talk about my discoveries just yet. I would keep them to myself, keep track of it, try to conceal my emotions. If any of you really are in a situation where you feel like you're going to be in danger, that a partner is concealing income, even expenses would show up here. I would just keep it to myself. If you do discover something like that, I would just keep an eye on it. Wednesday, we have the Eight of Wands, and this is a good indication that information that you need, momentum that has been slow coming, is going to be catching up now and will start to go on its own. For some of you, I know that the kind of like traditional meaning is airplane travel. I just really don't see it being a whole travel kind of oriented, reading. But I do have to mention that some speed is involved in this. So there are developments that once you seem to be trying to tie up the loose ends, it starts to set in motion the stage. It starts to put into motion the conditions that are required for the situation to move forward. Whatever it is that's going on, the momentum is coming. So don't worry about feeling like, oh God, how long is it going to take for me to assimilate all this information? And maybe you really are a private investigator, and this is what you do, your moonlighting job. Remember that show, Moonlighting? Sybil Shepherd, and can you believe this? I can't remember the name of the guy. Bruce Willis. I have to think of the movie The Sixth Sense to even remember his name. But that was a great movie. So on Thursday, we've got the Hanged Man, and this is a card that indicates to take your time and to see things from a different point of view. The golden rule will be shh. Just don't give your position away. If you are looking to find another job, an example, don't be telling people at your old job that that's what you're doing. You could quickly find yourself off on the layoff list because you mentioned that you were interested in another job. So just don't say anything, whatever you're going to do. But again, for those of you that are trying to ferret out some information, I really want to save this information for the relationship reading, but I gotta say that there is a potential here for needing to take a step back and to see the relationship from a bigger picture in order to begin to assimilate the components and the details, to harmonize your body sensations, your feelings, your emotions with fact and indisputable information. So take that as you will, but I think there are going to be hopefully a very small percentage of you that are going to be thinking, I just don't know if I could be in this relationship. And, I suppose on the flip side, you could have somebody saying that to you or thinking it, right? That they don't know if they can be in this relationship. I think that if a relationship is solid, there's never anything to really fear. And of course, you could have a very rock solid foundation and throw a 7.5 on the Richter scale at it, and yeah, it could probably groan and creak, but even a very old structure, if it's very soundly constructed and has been maintained, isn't going to do anything weird. It's not going to come crashing down. Could it stress out a little bit? Yeah. But I really welcome and relish tests from the universe to give them some kind of an origin, because it shows me right away. I mean, I'm one of these people that are hard to date, I suppose, because I already know things that I wish I didn't know, and it's kind of hard to block it. It's just become that way. Don't think it's ever cool to be, like somebody like me. There's lots of us out there, but it kind of takes the fun out of it, and it's really hard to block it out. But in this case, you're being asked to look at it from a different point of view. Maybe you need to see it from a spiritual point of view. Step back and wonder if this is a spiritual connection, or was it just weird? Like when people get together after rebound relationships, they just never seem to work out, or if they do, no one else sees kind of the disgusting mess that the glue beneath the veneer has become, to try to hold it down. They keep pumping more glue between, and that's not always the case, but I think we can all agree that's usually the case, or people get married that got together during a divorce, and they ended up with people because they just needed somewhere to crash and have a P.O. box or an address, I guess. And so this is really where I think, if you look at it from a different perspective, if you could have chosen, if you could have met this person at a different time and not during one of those weird times, would you have married them if you are now looking at it in hindsight, that kind of thing. So doesn't mean you have to share these feelings with the world. I'm only here to tell you what comes to mind so that I can help you find ways to look at it, to turn it over, and to view the facets in the broad daylight, so that you know what you're working with, so that you can make good choices. Because even when couples are not happy together and they're being stubborn and they want to stay together, but they can't do the work to change the dynamic of the relationship, somebody just needs to say, would you guys please just get a divorce? It's like you hate each other. We can't see it until I caught you guys walking back to your car, and he said something and you slapped him in the back of the head. So with that in mind, we've got the sun in Sagittarius again, that solar 7th house of the relationship, the partnership, squaring Uranus and Aries, your solar 11th house of social activity, gains from your chosen profession, groups of people, the group dynamic, appearances of things in front of the group as well. So square such as this is saying that there could even be a shift. I would suggest, Gemini, as sparkly as you are, that if you meet somebody at a party or meet somebody at a new job, we don't date people we work with. And I advise this for a lot of reasons all the time. Well, not so much as I used to. It seems like people have really matured up, right? You don't, because somebody really ultimately needs to end up leaving that place of employment to get space. And while, nobody gives it a modicum of consideration in the beginning, we all know that it really isn't a good idea, because then there's just not enough time apart. Although if you have a really great relationship and can't stand the idea, and both of you are very cling wrap, right, then that's fine. But for the most part, people need to spend time away from each other. I always remember with this kind of a configuration, I always remember, how can I miss you if you won't go away? So having been a person who was used to be very clingy, now I feel like, well, everybody just thinks I'm emotionless. Is not true. I'm just extremely hyper selective now, after quite a few fails that I was just like, I can't believe my standards are so low. Jupiter goes retrograde here also in Virgo, your solar 4th house of home and family. I don't always call this a contracting energy. I usually think about Jupiter in terms of course, like we all do, expanding and contracting. I think that this is going to be laser focus. We have Make here, a prenatal solar eclipse, Jupiter, the node. There's a real need to get something in that 4th house taken care of. The node is retrograde, and there really is something going on. I don't know if this house needs more attention, that it's just dirty, needs to have a spring cleaning. Well, spring is coming up, so well, I'm saying this now as we just entered winter, really technically, and fully winter solstice. But there's some need to revise something about the home base environment. When the node appears somewhere, it is imperative that we pay attention to this area of our lives. So, with that said, keep that in mind. Mercury, of course, retrograde is intensified on this day, and the Sun, with its conjunction to Pluto, is really not happy with this Uranus and Aries, and so surprises can come up, I suppose. That if a guy was ever in a doghouse, he better have a lunch packed. You could end up out without the doghouse. So just keep that in mind, that surprises can occur like that. Friday, we have the Magician in reverse. Oh my gosh, I'm just setting myself up to get a million messages from people telling me, Rita, you told me I wasn't prepared. I couldn't even grab a sandwich. I know. Anyway, it's not going to apply to everybody because, of course, this is solar astrology and the tarot based on solar astrology and the creepy things that I do. So the Magician in reverse is talking about feeling kind of underconfident. It could even be that you do feel powerless, that you used to think you had the skills and the tools, and that life has shown you a different side of the coin. I really wouldn't dwell on it for too long, although I admit that with these astrological influences, you could be feeling like, no, Rita, you don't get it. I really feel powerless. Or maybe you really do have a serious situation where you don't have control, or you are in one way or another not allowed to exert your influence in one way or another in a situation that is important to you. Mercury, of course, will move right into Capricorn here, sitting at 29 degrees, and we will have the moon going into Capricorn as well, so it could be a little bit emotional there. On Saturday, the card you've drawn is the Seven of Cups in reverse. And the Seven of Cups in reverse is talking about needing to make sure that we don't fall into the pattern of wishful thinking again. It's really great to daydream and fantasize, and I love to go to bed just so that I could dream about what it is I want to do next. But that's one thing to spend your dedicated sleep hours hoping that you can get a glimpse of your amazing future and to just kind of sit there. And it could be also that there's some element of this challenge to that 7th and 8th house, especially where you're looking back saying, you know what, I just should have known. I let my heart speak. I didn't do my math. I realized I was thinking with my butt. There's a lot of ways this could come across, but this is really kind of that moment where we're like, of all the choices I could have made, I made this, and now I can't hurt his feelings and say, you weren't sharp as a tack, but I thought you were a really nice guy. Just giving you something to laugh about here. I hope that's not the case. Sunday, we've got the Judgment card. So the Judgment card is talking about kind of reap what you sow, get what you gave. What goes around comes around. And here it comes. And so here we've got the moon and void, of course, and then it will enter Aquarius where that retrograde is just left, moved back into Capricorn. The moon will trace right over that. So it could be a little sensitized this weekend. And I think that the best way to handle this energy is to relax and put things in perspective, not let them get totally out of control. But all in all, Gemini, I think the main thing to remember is that regardless of whatever you're looking at, whatever you're analyzing, whatever you are, boy, the word that I had almost couldn't fly out of my mouth. Whatever it is that you're tearing down to study, it's probably coming from a slightly emotional place for you. So that's just because there's a preponderance of evidence that suggests that there is this kind of a reaction. It could be visceral, but it's still, in my opinion, kind of heart-centered. So even if you're having some tough discussions about relationships or partnership issues or appropriating funds and how that's working for you or isn't. I think the best way to handle it is to remain detached and to view it from a perspective of outside looking in, literally where you would look and say, hey, if I am not me and I see this happening and I'm going to coach these people, what will I say? Practice that a few times and see how easy it gets as you go along, Gemini, and before you know it, you'll be a pro at disseminating information to yourself. Have a wonderful week. I love you, and I'll be talking to you soon.